Alright, guys, welcome back. We are watching Tsukimonogatari Episode 2, Yotsugi Doll Part 2. We haven't had much of Yotsugi yet, that's for sure. I am excited, hopefully, that she will appear in this episode, because Araragi is a vampire. Well, he's been a vampire, but his vampiric symptoms are increasing, which is a very, very intriguing premise for me for this arc, especially to see how that relates to Ononoki, right? Because Ononoki's always been a weird character to me. In terms of like, it's hard for me to understand what Araragi sees exactly when he looks at her. You know what I mean? Like how he interprets her. And I think the opening sequence of the last episode showed part of that. Him saying that she's not a human, she's a monster. All of this. It's very interesting. I think in some way it's again, it's like something about himself too, the way he views Ononoki, of course. But either way, let's begin. Episode 2. You can line your own copy up with this if you want to. We are starting in 3, 2, 1. No reflection. Cannot see himself. Uh-oh. Oh god. Is that... Is that really gonna work? I guess. Okay, what do you mean? Like, I guess Aragi has a history of that. Oh god. It's about that. I guess this is a good way to distract her, right? Like, yeah, that's... sure, why not? Hey, it's kind of, just like the toothbrush scene. It's just the other way around. That's actually very interesting. No, that's actually an interesting way to think about it, I think, right? That scene instantly makes me think about the toothbrush scene. And when Skihi walked in on Aragi and Karen being weird, right? Oh, I gotta read the lyrics. I'll talk later. I didn't read that beginning part, so shit. So colorful. Hmm. I love this opening, actually. I wonder what other characters this person has voiced before. Yeah, I love that opening, actually. It's actually so good. She's just, it's such a, I don't know, it's so good. Oh, right. Of course, Shinobu hopefully knows something about what's going on. Well, yeah, it's morning, so she's asleep. Oh, no. Is she really not just not here? Okay. Thank God. Jesus. He's dead. What is happening? Right. So what's going on? I like the, like, leprechaun outfit. It's not a leprechaun outfit. She just has, like, the clover. Right. I suppose that is actually an interesting point. Oh god. What are you doing? Hmm. God, I wouldn't have thought of that. Aragi's smart, huh? He's just a vampire. Okay, okay. Yeah. Well, I wonder. See, the extreme immortality healing is just part of being like a kiss shot vampire, right? Normal vampires aren't like completely invincible and heal instantly, right? Probably. Yeah, yeah. He's a normal vampire, right? That's actually yeah, yeah. Hmm. Sure. Yeah. Although, hmm. Interesting. Interesting. What are we doing? Who is that person? You gotta use someone's name for once, Shinobu. Come on. Hmm. Okay, sure. Ocean is not around, though, obviously. Oh, okay. Why her exactly? Oh, just like her connection, I guess, to the other specialists. Sure, sure. I don't know how much of a help Kaganui would be. It's like maybe she likes to kill oddities. Definitely the strongest one. Interesting. Yeah, would she be on your side though? You know? Of course. What is with the frogs? Oh god, don't suggest that. Don't even think about suggesting that. Yeah, yeah. One candidate left. Well, who's the other specialist, right? No. Yeah, there's one other specialist. Mm-hmm. Guyan Izuko. Yeah. Aragi's hesitancy to contact her. Makes sense, probably. Right. Hmm. Okay, I suppose. Wanting to go to Kaganui so badly is interesting, I think, considering like Kaganui's whole thing was so closely related to like Aragi's thing about justice, you know? Oh. Oh god. Right. Of course. I mean, she knows everything, right? Obviously. It's whoa. Put some clothes on. Deserved. Stop meowing. He's so cool. Hmm. I'm sure. Why does she meow now? Okay. Interesting. Hmm. Oh, wow. Oh, the audio. Oh, interesting. Because, huh, is it about himself? Huh. Oh, okay. Interesting. Huh. Or else. Well, would it be, though? You know, I mean, we certainly had a definitive conclusion to that, right? It's interesting that Araragi thinks about it like that, though. Hmm. Gotta travel at night. God, how would she fall asleep up there? Where are we? Hmm. I tried to read that backwards text. I really did. There she is. Should have known she would be in the claw machine, obviously. Of course. Like, what? Man. Oh. She really can be unsettling at times, huh? Like, what are we doing? Why is there a claw machine? Why is she inside of it? It's gotta mean something. No, it actually has to mean something, right? That's, like, not even remotely close. Like, you suck. Like, hello? It's not, yeah, like, literally. Ooh. Oh, that's weird. Yeah. Well, she is less of a vampire. Yeah. Well, I'm sure. You know, I mean, she was God, right? Like, I mean, she could do anything. Hmm. That is still not even close, unfortunately. Oh, it's even worse now. Well, maybe not. Maybe you can, like, you know, maybe that helps. Maybe that helps. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Oh, God. Hmm. Oh, God, this has to mean something, right? Like, what is a claw machine, right? Like, what does this mean, you know? Hmm. It has to be symbolic of something, right? Oh, God, how many times did he have to try? Oh, there we go. Okay, all right, finally. Why? Literally. But he got his prize. Yeah, yeah. Maybe not. Maybe not. Grab it. Oh God, that is creepy. Yeah. Why didn't you crawl out? What are you doing? Oh right, her whole yay thing. Of course, of course. But everyone's a sibling to her. Come on. Where did she learn that? We haven't seen her. Oh, okay. There she is. Oh, what's up? Okay, okay. She is here. Ooh, at the cram school. Oh God, not again. What are you? Literally, what are you doing? Ooh, okay, okay. You don't have to be tortured anymore. Well, it's been healing over time. You played the claw game for an hour. Like, nighttime. Okay, sure. The moon, perhaps you could even say. Right, sure, yeah. I mean, I only said that because, like, the title of the arc, right? It's a whoa! Kaganu, he doesn't like Ononoki's thing either. Yeah. It's a whoa! How does that help? Oh, she has to analyze it, of course. Naturally. Okay, okay. Sure. Hmm. Oh, God. I did not like that sound at all. Ooh, interesting. Just like, Oshino and Kizu, right? God, that was so violent. Hmm. Ooh. Think about healing them. Interesting. Is that how it works? I suppose so. Especially... Hmm. Sure, sure. Oh god, I don't want to see that at all. Okay, we're ideologically healing them. Let's go. Oh, it's gonna be something stupid. It's gonna be something stupid. Right, yeah. Like, hello. Like, no, of course, naturally. Obviously. Right. I should have seen it coming. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's okay. There we go. There we go. Does it make sense that it comes to that? I suppose. Maybe, in a way. Yeah. Yeah. How'd the analysis go? Okay, okay. But why, right? I mean, ooh. I mean, there could only really be one reason why in my mind, but just the way all oddities work, right? Okay. This arc is weird. Like, visually, like... sure, sure. Hmm. Damn it. I got one of those. So what was that face? She's all dressed up. Sitting on her throne, of course. Right. Right. Oh god. Oh no. She has to establish dominance. Like, she really has to... Uh-huh, of course, right. These underlings are helping her, helping you. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Performing their peasant duty. Oh god. Oh no. The Kaganui is not gonna work. She's such a grudge with Ononoki, right? She's really gotta keep up her appearances here. I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna work against her. Uh-huh, uh-huh. I'm sure. I'm sure. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, she has no cards here. It's over for Shinobu. God, that is a heavy line, huh? Oh, God. Sure. How awesome. I suppose. I guess. Right. Yeah, she's actually really cool and amazing. Exactly. I literally. God, this arc is really something. Hmm. Sure. Wow. Huh. Very meta. Ooh. Turning into a vampire. Yeah. Coming back to the vampire. Hmm. It's okay. This is a serious situation. Aragi's attitude about it will be very interesting, I think. Okay, okay. Interesting. Calculate them for what purpose, exactly? Turned into a vampire too many times. Interesting. Relied too much on your powers as a vampire. Okay. I'm gonna have to think about this. Yeah, I think this makes sense to me in a way. With, like, on a meta level. Yeah, like, viewing himself as a vampire. And, like, just the way oddities work, right? Ooh, I'm sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, a substitute in between. Okay, okay. The music. I'm sure, yeah, right? Going and using his vampires against her over and over again when she would, like, try and kill him. Ooh, right. That's what he thinks, of course. Responsibility. Hmm. Ooh. I... It's not possible, is it? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right, no, that makes so much sense, right? Yeah. He can't return to being a human, right? Sure, sure. No, actually, okay. Oh, God, fuck, that's the end. I gotta read the lyrics. I gotta read the lyrics. God damn it. We gotta talk about so much stuff. Ooh. Call back to how Araki was talking at the start. Hair. Oh god, these lyrics are very relevant, huh? Man. Ooh. Oh, it's so it feels so related to like Araki's attitude about like change, you know? And like regrets, I guess, right? That's actually such a good ending, isn't it? Man. Huh. This arc is really good so far. Okay, let's talk about it in the discussion. Okay, let's talk about the episode. I had to walk around for a little bit and try and figure out like what a claw machine is. You know what I mean? But I didn't make very much progress. I tried. I tried my best. We are literally like so back. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like this arc, I don't know, it feels like we are addressing things that in a way have been this arc feels so important, right? It feels like whatever is happening here is incredibly important, right? It's just we are hitting at the core of so many things about Araragi. It's like the ending lyrics made me think about this too, about how like I guess what this arc feels like to me. Again, Araragi looks in the mirror, he can't see himself, right? In some way, it is about Araragi recognizing the change that has been done to him, right, throughout the story, through being a vampire, right, and what that means, right? And he realizes, in a sense, I suppose, that he is fundamentally so different than he was before, right? Um, the change that has been brought onto him by other people and by his experiences, right? I guess and those experiences only being possible through his relationships with others, right? Which was the heart of like what it meant to be a vampire and to have lost his humanity like back in Kizu, right? um it makes so much sense that it's coming back now, like this late in the story, right? Like other than Hana, this is the furthest arc in the timeline, right? This is right after Koi. This is right after Atagi End. So yeah, for Araragi, this is like near, I guess what I imagine is like the end in some sense, right? That's what he says in the first episode. This is the beginning of the end for Araragi Kiyomi. Um, what I didn't talk about last time that I think is important, because I was talking about like Araragi as a narrator and how there is from some point in the story from which he is doing the narrating, right? Like the Araragi in the last episode when he was narrating that opening scene seemed like he still had like a negative view of all of these things. Just the very line saying this is the end of Araragi Kiyomi, the human named Araragi Kiyomi. That's a very like negative way to put it, right? That's very much like the reason why Aragi is turning into a vampire right now is because of his mindset and the way that he views himself as a vampire, as something that has fundamentally changed from the way he was before, and like his recognition of that, right? And the Araragi and the narration of the opening scene seem to still be in agreement of that in some way. But what I didn't think about is Hana and how Hana's after this, obviously. It's like a few months later, right? And Araragi seems so different, right? Completely different, right? Like Araragi's it's been a while, but Araragi's whole thing that he tells Kanbaru at the end of Hana feels like it is so he's so different, right? He has so much like reached a much healthier and better conclusion than thinking that he himself has fundamentally changed to the point where he is unrecognizable, you know, or at least viewing that in like a negative light. You know what I mean? He's completely different. It seems in Hana. So that is very interesting to me, just because it makes me feel like the answer to my question of from what point is the Araragi narration like happening like in universe? It has to be from a point like before Hana, it feels like. I mean, I guess I wonder if that will be a question that is ever directly answered in any sense. It doesn't have to be. It definitely doesn't have to be. It's just something interesting to think about. And I think that just shows how this is I mean, I guess we know Aragi's going to figure this out, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, either way, let me try and explain, I guess, my interpretation of everything that's going on here, because I feel like just like Kizu, all of this feels like it is so layered behind, um, like not really symbolism, I guess, but it's just so layered in like Aragi's mind of the way he views these things, and because of the way oddities work, I think the way he views what it means to be a vampire is literally affecting him in the story, right? Um, so, like I said before, I guess my interpretation, I suppose, of this arc is he's becoming a vampire independently of Shinobu because in some way he has like fundamentally changed as a person at this point, right? Araragi is a very different person than he was in Kizu or in Bake early on in the story, right? He has had all these experiences that have changed him so much as a person. I think even in his mind, he would imagine himself in some way, you know, like he imagines himself, just like always, I think, as breaking his own rules, basically, right? Like he, just like the whole vampire thing on the basis of it, right, is being a human is good, being an evil undead vampire is like bad, right? So him thinking of himself as, oh, I've changed so much because of the influence of other people and all of this, which he connects to the idea of vampirism, right? Him viewing himself as a changed person so much to the point that he's not even human anymore by his definition. Yeah, it makes sense why he's becoming a vampire. You know what I mean? Like in the oddity sense, independent of Shinobu, right? He thinks that he himself has fundamentally changed to that degree. You know what I mean? Um, and I think the interesting thing about it, of course, is it is being presented by the story as like a negative thing, right? The obvious like argument, I suppose, like against this interpretation in a way would be if this vampirism and if this change within Araragi, if that's what it is representative of, right? Then why is the story presenting it as such a negative thing, right? Like Ononoki and Kaganui in this conversation, right? They say that he's relying too much on his vampire powers and all of this, you know, that he's being too you know, like they say all of these negative things about the idea of vampirism, which I suppose you would think if vampirism is representative of like relying on people around you and like these positive things, and it's only twisted into something negative by Araragi's mind, um, then it seems weird that the story itself is also presenting it as a negative, right? Um, I guess my point against that would be I think the only reason that it is a negative thing for Araragi to become a vampire, right? Like literally becoming a like literal vampire rather than an Araragi vampire is a negative thing, right? You can't walk in the sun anymore. You know, you're like it's all these negative things about being a vampire, right? And those things are literal negatives, which are the things that Ononoki and Kagnuri are talking about. The only person who has this connection between vampirism and like human relationships and all of this is Araragi, right? So like the only reason why it is manifesting itself as a negative thing for him is because that is how he himself views it in some way, right? Um, I think this goes back so much to Skihi Phoenix yet again, where the conclusion of that arc was Araragi accepting, in some sense, himself as like a monster, right? And deciding that he's not like an evil monstrous fake sneaking into his family and all of this stuff, right? It was a I don't want to call it a complete fix to all of that, but it was certainly like, you know, it definitely that problem wasn't as relevant in Aragi's mind, right? But I remember part of what I said at the time back then even was the fundamental things that led him to thinking like that in the first place, which comes back to his like objective like rules-based system of things that he thinks are right and things that he thinks are wrong, right? That was never changed, right? That was never changed. So the only thing that it ends up having Aragi think, I believe, especially with like Ogi existing, right, which I think is has to be part of this, like for sure. And like him seeing the darkness, all of it. There's so many things to it, right? All it really meant for Aragi is he understands and accepts himself as a monster, as a vampire in some sense. Um, and all what that leads to him thinking is, oh, I accept myself. That just means I'm breaking the rules, right? He views himself as someone who is breaking these essentially arbitrary rules that he thinks are like objective and are the way things should be, right? So that's why I don't really think that this is any way like trudging up an issue that Araragi himself already got over. I feel like if anything, this is like the challenge to those rules in the first place. It feels like, right? Like this is the like the solution to this. Like when Ononoki here at the end said there's no fix to it, there's no solution to it. I disagree with her. The way to fix it is Araragi has to fundamentally change what he imagines like human connection and all of this means, right? Which I don't think he has ever done. I don't think he has done that yet, right? He accepts himself for having human connection and all of these things, right? But fundamentally, it's not like he's overthrown his entire idea of rules and right and wrong and all of this. You know what I mean? And I think that would be what would be required for him to fix this essentially, right? In order for him to not be a vampire anymore, right? To not have these negative things that he associates with being a vampire, that he associates with the change that has been done to him over the course of the story, he just has to change the way that he is viewing it. It is entirely because of the way he is viewing this change on him. It's nothing about the change itself. And it only manifests itself in this negative way, in this like vampiric way that seems so negative, because that's how he views it, and that's how oddities work, right? So yeah, I guess that's generally my interpretation of it, I suppose, right? Like, I think another interesting angle of it too is him becoming a vampire independent of Shinobu, right? Like what was the line exactly? They said entirely independently of like Shinobu. God, where was the line exactly? It was somewhere in here, right? But they make sure to emphasize it has nothing to do with Shinobu, right? And of course it doesn't, right? But I guess the important thing there too is it's like it has nothing to do really with the people around him in a sense, right? It is he himself like has changed, has allowed himself to be changed, I suppose, you know. He just is like such a different person than he was at the beginning of the story, you know, and it's not just something he can discard. It's not something he can reclaim, right? He can't become his old self again. He can't become human again in his mind by like what, cutting ties with everyone around him, doing something like that, right? It's impossible. It's I agree with Ononoki, I suppose, in the sense of it is impossible to fix this. If by fix this, Araragi would think of that as become the way he was before. You know what I mean? Like fundamentally, he has changed. He has let himself be changed, right, through his connections with others, and that's not a bad thing. He just has to change the way he's thinking about it, right? Like that's the entire thing, right? And I think it is that attitude that we have to confront in some way, right? And again, I just to me it is certainly different in my mind than the the thing that he faced and accepted back in Skihi Phoenix. I think it's a very different uh I think it's a very different thing, right? It's also this guilt around. I think it's this personal responsibility thing for him too, right? He thinks about Ononoki, or not Ononoki, Nadeko. Um, I wish I could remember. This conversation's so long, I can't find any of the lines I'm trying to talk about. Sometimes I'm so good at it. Where is he thinking about Nadeko? I want to go back to that line. It's after this, right? Um, but they talk about how when he was fighting Nadeko every day. I guess not fighting her, but letting Nadeko beat him up every day. God, where the hell is it? When he was letting Nadeko beat him up every day, he would turn into a vampire over and over again every single day, right? You know what? I'm literally gonna like pause as I try and find this line. Like I'm gonna lose my mind. Okay, I finally found it. God, I don't know why that took me so long. It was way later in the episode than I thought it was. Anyway, he's talking about Nadeko and like the personal responsibility he feels for what happened to Nadeko, and that's why he kept using his vampire powers, kept going up there, letting Nadeko murder him, right, and all of this, right. It's part of the impossible responsibility that he feels for everyone around him, and I think part of the conflict he's having here with using his vampire powers for that is because he feels personally responsible for Nadeko and like trying to fix this problem, right, that he thinks he caused. Um, Using his vampire powers for it, I think represents an interesting conflict because his vampire powers, especially for like the way Araragi views them, are something that are representative of his connection to other people, like Shinobu specifically, right? And obviously Shinobu herself is that's kind of like the big thing, right? So he himself is becoming a vampire through this. I imagine partially because he feels some amount of guilt for using his connection to others to like help him try and solve this problem that he feels like this immense personal responsibility for, you know. So it's almost like if he himself was just a vampire and had these powers, these abilities by himself, he could rely fully on himself to fix it in some way, you know. And through that vein, I think it makes sense why he has like these negative consequences in a way, because that's impossible, right? He can't rely entirely on himself to fix everything without the help of any of the people around him. You know what I mean? That's not possible, right? That is impossible responsibility, right? So yeah. A good grasp of the general situation, though I can't say I have a firm grasp of everything. If you say so. Okay. I think we've covered this, right? Like Aragi's line here. How can I turn back into a human, right? Like that's the I guess that's the basis of everything in a way, right? Okay. I think we've covered it. I think we've covered all of that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about the vampire stuff I really want to talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about more because we're going through the episode. We're going through the episode more here. Um let's talk about claw machines for a second, right? Let's talk about claw machines. I have been trying to think what the hell a claw machine is for a while, right? This I took a break in between the recording and the discussion, really trying to think what the hell is a claw machine, right? Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm thinking, right? Um, so what is a claw machine? It's a stupid, like rigged, horrible game, right? Like it's like designed to steal your money, right? Um, Aragi sucks at it. That's like the other important factor here. And Oninoki is what he's trying to get from it, right? So on like a meta level, on like a thematic level, what does this represent? Aragi using a claw machine, failing over and over again to try and get Oninoki out of it. I have no idea. That's like, I literally do, it like this has to mean something, right? It can't just be me. Like, leave your claw machine theories down in the comments, please. Like, literally, what could this mean? I just don't know. I think we'll talk about it in a second. I think Aragi wanting to go to Kaganui, who I think he views as like this authority. He says to her, or he thinks about her that she's like the strongest person he knows, right? He views her in some sense as a representation of like this justice and all of this, you know. So I think when he's having this problem relating to vampirism and this that he imagines he himself breaking the rules in some way, right? Him wanting to go to Kaganui for help about this, I think that makes sense. Oninoki is in some way like an in between for that, right? The way Araragi views Oninoki has always been a question for me. He views her as a monster in some sense, right? She is so closely related to his whole like humanity versus like being a monster thing, right? Um but I just don't know. I just don't know. I can just tell so much that this absolutely means something, right? Why is she just sitting in a claw machine? I don't know, right? Um, God, this reminds me so much of like that stupid rock paper scissors scene back with Karen and Araragi, right? In Nisei, where I could tell that meant something, and it was so hard for me to try and think of something. It's just like that with this too. Except I really want to try and get this because I feel like this means something important in some way, right? I really just want to try and latch on to anything where Aragi is like thinking about or talking to Oninoki in any way because I really want to try and understand what Aragi sees when he looks at Ononoki, right? And I feel like I just don't know if I get it entirely, you know? Either way, this means something. I know it does. I'm mad that I don't know what, but it means something, right? Um, this scene at the beginning with Skihi and Karen, I think is interesting because it reminds me of the toothbrush scene, right? It reminds me of the toothbrush scene where Skihi walks in on Karen and Aragi doing something insane and crazy, right? And what was the conclusion of that episode, right? That whole ridiculous, crazy episode was part of showing Aragi and Karen like uh in their relationship being like closer together than before, right? It was like this. It was kind of a culmination of what happened in Karen B and like them like coming together in a sense, right? Like this, you know, the problem between like their ways of viewing justice and all of this, you know. Um, so I want to say that just like how Karen in some way is so close and is so representative, or at least what Aragi sees, I think, when he looks at her in a sense, is like this all this justice stuff. Skihi, obviously very direct parallels between her and like Aragi and the way he views himself, this whole like vampirism thing. The whole monster thing, right? How Skihi Phoenix is very much a parallel arc between the acceptance of her and the acceptance of that part of himself, right? So I want to say in some way that this scene serves a similar purpose to that, perhaps, right? That it says something about Aragi and Skihi. I mean, I guess it's just kind of like what I said last time in a way. I guess you could just say that his extreme closeness to Skihi paints the picture of this in no way, like the conflict of this arc not in any way being the same as it was in Skihi Phoenix. It in no way represents like Aragi changing his mind and rejecting this vampiric part of himself, right? The issue here is the way he fundamentally views what it means to be changed and to be a monster. You know what I mean? It's about the idea of change and Aragi recognizing that change within himself rather than like a surface level rejection of that change in the first place, which is more so what Skihi Phoenix was about, right? I guess I'm happy with that as an explanation. I think that makes sense, right? And she beats them up. Thank you, thank you. God, the opening is so good. I actually love this opening so much. It's so colorful and so pretty, you know? That's always been such a striking part of Ononoki's like character design is how colorful she is, you know? She just has crazy probably the most flamboyant design of any character, which is so in contrast to like her mannerisms, you know, and like the way Aragi views her, you know? She feels like she has such a strong sense of character, and she really does, right? It's just the way Aragi views her, and I guess on a surface level, the way she it feels like she comes across, right? Like the her tone of voice and everything, you know. Hmm. It's a very good opening. A very good opening. So Aragi wants to go to Shinobu for help, of course. I really thought for a second that she was gonna be gone, and that was gonna be weird if she was like just not here, you know. Um, she punishes him because he lied to her about Mr. Donut. I don't know what's like the leprechaun attire is all about, right? Like St. Patrick's Day. Like I don't know. It's February. Why are we? I don't know. I mean, it looks very nice, very cool. I like when Shinobu gets all dressed up in the episode when she has to confront her her servants here. You know, the underlings. Very nice, very fancy. She really went all out with this outfit, huh? So Shinobu and Aragi talk about his vampirism, right? Does it make sense? I think it makes sense that Shinobu isn't able to solve the issue by herself, that she doesn't understand what's going on, right? Because again, it's like I guess Shinobu and Aragi are just like the same character in a way. And yeah, I say that all the time, but like I do understand what I mean by that. They have faced such a similar like conflict, right? Which was their disconnection from like relationships and other people led to them being suicidal and miserable and hating their lives and them coming together, like I started fixing that for both of them, right? So it probably makes sense on just like a surface level that Shinobu isn't able to understand this problem or fix it for him. I wonder, would Shinobu herself have a kind of conflict like this? I don't really believe so. Well, maybe she would. Maybe she would in a sense. Her kind of conflict comes from a different place though, where she doesn't want to view herself as human, right? Which is interesting. And I guess that is painted through this episode, through the scene that we were just on, right? Where she's trying to show herself as like the all-powerful almighty vampire god, all of this, you know what I mean? Trying to separate herself so much from Kaganui and Ononoki and other people, you know. It manifests itself in a different way for Shinobu, right? It's like this haughtiness and this wanting to think of herself as I'd like this, you know. I guess it's just the outcome in a way is similar to like Araragi, right? I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. God, we've had so little about Shinobu for a while, you know? We need another Shinobu arc. What was it? Like, I mean, I guess Shinobu Time, she talked about her past, which was interesting. But really it feels like the last time it was like Kabuki, right? It was like the time travel arc. I don't know. I hope we get more Shinobu stuff in the future, right? Hmm. So not only is he becoming a vampire, he's becoming like a normal vampire, a weak vampire in a sense, like just a run of the mill vampire, right? Um, which makes sense. I guess the extreme regeneration and crazy like vampiric powers is very much tied to Shinobu herself, right? Like it's you're only crazy and immortal if you are a Shinobu kiss shot vampire, not just a normal vampire. And Araragi, because he's literally becoming a vampire, like through his own, he's turning himself into a vampire, right? Like because he thinks of himself as one, right? That's how oddities work, right? So he's just becoming like a normal vampire in a way, right? What I think is interesting there is the idea of immortality. How right now Aragi is a vampire, but he isn't immortal. And a question for me that's I've struggled with in a way is like what is immortality? What does immortality mean like in this story, right? Um because Kaganui hunts immortal oddities, hunts immortal aberrations, right? Um and Aragi is a vampire, But he's not immortal in the same way that he was before. I don't know. I don't know. It's really hard to say what immortality possibly means, right? I think it's there's always kind of been this vague idea of immortality being relating to the idea of like stasis. Oh god, that's a weird word to say considering the name of my channel, huh? But like being related to like not changing, I guess, right? Being like standing still almost, right? Like if you're immortal, then you don't change as a person, I suppose, right? Which is just like which is a weird concept to me because it's clear that Araragi has been changing as a person despite his immortality, right? Shinobu has changed as a person, right? Like ever since like Kizu, right? Her attitude is very different than then, despite her immortality. You know what I mean? Um, so I don't know. The concept of immortality is just a very interesting thing to me. It's just something that I feel like I've always been unclear on, I suppose. Hmm. His toe has been healing, of course, of course. God, that's like another thing too, right? Is Aragi's healing power is of course weaker, and his immortality is of course not there, right? Because in a way that has represented almost like the power of friendship. That sounds stupid, right? But it represents like this power that Araragi has gotten through his connection to others, right? In his mind, at least at some point, like a ill-gotten power, right? A power he thinks he doesn't deserve, that he shouldn't rely on. The power granted to him through a connection to another, right? So it makes sense that power that comes only through himself, right? This power that comes from him believing that he should rely purely on himself to like fix Nadeko's situation, for example. It makes sense that it's so much weaker, right? Because it only comes from within him, which is always going to be a much weaker thing than relying on others around him. You know, makes sense. Makes sense. Ski broke his toe. I believe it. I mean, it's not very hard. It's not very hard to break a toe. Frankly, I've broken one of my toes literally walking down the stairs. I like tripped a little bit as I was walking down the stairs on like the last step, and I like stepped on one of my toes wrong as I like stumbled, and it just broke. It was like, God, not fun. So he can't walk in the sunlight at all, right? It's a very fitting punishment in a way, right? It's this isolation and all of this, you know, not being able to see himself in the mirror, not being able to walk in the sun, you know, it's all these things about being a vampire that feel like they're like a punishment, like a holy punishment, right? That's kind of what it is, you know. Which again, it's just fundamentally how Araragi views the idea of being a vampire that has made him like this, right? What is happening here? What's like what are we I guess this is an extended Aragi punishment, right? So Shinobu brings up the idea to contact Ononoki so we can contact Kaganui. Contacting Kaganui, kind of talked about it already. I think it makes sense. The way Aragi viewed Kaganui and like Skihi Phoenix was as a like warrior of justice, right? Like all this, you know, like she was in the right in some way, and he wanted himself to like be judged by her. I don't really think that's what's happening here exactly. I think it makes sense that he's going to her when he thinks he himself, you know, he's turned into a vampire, right? Which is still something that he has negative connotations with, and it makes you wonder too if all of this is tied to the idea of he himself breaking his own rules, right? Then it makes sense he would go to someone that he views as a like a warrior of humanity in some sense, the strongest person he knows, as he says about Kaganui, you know, someone that he thinks is in some way an authority on this, you know. It his attitude about Skihi too is really interesting because the conclusion to Skihi Phoenix was Kaganui herself accepting Skihi, essentially, right? Um, and all of this, right? So it's interesting that in a scene, in a moment, he tells her that she has to hide, right? It's almost like he's reverted in a sense that he thinks that because Kaganui's around, that she's gonna hunt down Skihi again, even though we've already like dealt with that, right? I it really shows Aragi's like unchanging view of what he imagines is right and wrong. It really makes me like I guess it really perfectly shows like how despite accepting Skihi, and through that accepting himself in Skihi Phoenix, the fundamental rules that he thinks exist, and that in some way Kaganui even represents in some way, right? Through just her power, I suppose, right? Through being so strongly human in his eyes. Um, he doesn't think they've changed, right? That's very interesting. It's very interesting, right? How he thinks that Kaganui will still hunt Skihi because of her connection to the rules that he imagines exists. and therefore that she would still try and hunt Skiki, despite their shared acceptance of her all those arcs ago, right? That I feel like that paints the situation like perfectly, right? That makes so much sense to me. That makes so much sense to me. Yeah. So to finish this, yeah, we talk about all the specialists. Shinobu brings up contact and Kaiki, which like Aragi would never do. Crazy, right? It's like that. No way. Kaiki's never coming back to this town. That's for sure, huh? And the final one is Gaian Izuko, which Gaian Izuko is such an interesting character to me. She feels like someone that is very much in the same vein as like Aragi's rules and like the darkness. Like she feels like a fundamental like part of the universe. You know what I mean? Like Gaian Izuko, knowing everything, she just feels like this like natural like force almost. Like um she feels so inhuman. She feels so just so scary. I understand Aragi's like hesitancy to contact her. I wonder how much of like my negative view of her is because of the way that we always see her through Aragi's eyes, right? And Hanakawa's eyes, right? I was thinking like the only other character we ever seen meet her is Hanakawa, and Hanakawa also had a very negative experience with her, right? Um, yeah, she represents like it just feels like this unchanging just it's I guess it's this idea of complete knowledge of everything. Feels like it would be something um she would be someone that is like unchanging in a way, it feels like. You know what I mean? Like yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's hard to imagine. Like if it's hard to imagine what Araki sees when he looks at Ononoki, it's even harder to imagine what he thinks and what he sees when he looks at Guy and Izuku, right? That I really don't know. The leader of the specialists. Yeah, the feeling of not wanting to look for help is growing more and more. Can't really blame you. I know what all these frogs are about. It's pretty cute, I guess. She's got some frogs. I don't know why Aragi's room turned into like a nursery. It's I couldn't tell you. This arc is like weird visually, right? All these weird, crazy visual things keep happening, which I guess is normal for Monogatari, right? Like that happens. It just feels like it's been ramped up a lot in this arc, in this episode especially, I guess, right? Just so much weird stuff going on. Um, what it makes me think in some way, which I guess, of course, it's something that just the studio does. It's not something that's like present in the books, to my understanding, right? But I guess that to try and analyze it on some level, it makes me think like it makes me think of the way that Aragi uses, or at least the story, I guess. Maybe not Aragi through his narration, but the story uses like so many things as like analogies or like metaphors for Aragi's like all the weird fan service stuff and like Aragi's antics with characters and how that's always so closely related to like his emotional like bond with them in some sense, right? I feel like the crazy visuals feel like they serve like that same purpose almost in terms of like um it feels like it makes everything feel so less like real in a sense. It like it's almost like it takes you out of the story for a moment when some crazy shit's going on, right? It feels like almost like a distraction, right? The same way that like the crazy toothbrush episode felt like it was intentionally like that almost to feel like it was distracting you from these very close emotional feelings that Aragi was actually having, you know? Like an emotional struggle in some way. Same with like Hajikuji, right? How his very serious like bond with Hajikuji, it felt like it was presented in this way that feels so ridiculous and so easy to like dismiss. And it feels like that's something that Aragi himself would want. And the visuals feel like they serve like that same purpose or in the same vein at least. Hmm. So we decide to contact Guy Nizuko, and she has already texted him because she knows everything. Tonight at 7 o'clock, fourth floor of the department store, across the station to the game corner. You should be able to meet Yotsugi there. I've made these arrangements. This gratitude someday, I hope you repay by your friendship. Your friend, Guy and Izuko. So she is very the way that she phrases this, saying that she hopes Aragi will repay it someday, it's very interesting, right? It's very like transactional view of things, right? I guess she always had a very transactional view of things. Back in Oni Monogatari, when Hachikuji disappeared, and she wanted to like receive favors from Aragi in exchange for helping him, right? It's very interesting. Maybe it makes sense that she's like that because of course she knows everything. So she's probably used to other people using her or feeling like she's like a tool, right, for them to, to just have their problem solved. Very interesting. Very interesting. Why does Skihi meow now? Like, when did the meowing start happening? It's like, I don't know. I don't know. Um, we talked about this, right? His attitude about Skihi, his attitude about Skihi and wanting her to not be here because of Kaganui. What I thought he was gonna say is he thinks they're in danger because of him being a vampire again, right? Like this vampirism thing coming up. I wonder if that is part of it or not. That's where I really thought this was going, was that he was going to say, because I'm a vampire again, right? I don't want my sisters around me right now. And I wonder if that is part of it. I mean, nothing is said to that effect. It's just something that I imagine Aragi would feel, right? Um, yeah, I don't know. So they're going to Kanburu's house. So sure, I suppose. Hmm. Since they're trying to contact Kaganui-san, have to hide Skihi. Yeah, and we talked about this. Or else it will be a second coming of summer break, which is such a weird thing to think, because that was already dealt with, right? But it's just the way Aragi views like these unchanging rules, right? That's the important part, right? Like for sure, for sure. Hmm. If the travel at night, we go to the claw machine. God, I am dead serious. I need someone to tell me what they think the claw machine means, right? Like I just don't know. I just literally have no idea, but it has to mean something, right? To me, the most important parts of it that feel like they really will help in unearthing what it could possibly mean is claw machines are unfair and stupid, right? They exist to steal your money. The fact that Aragi sucks at it, right? And the fact that he's trying to get Ononoki out of it, obviously, right? Those are the three things that I feel like have to be with those three things in tandem. I feel like you could with that alone, think of some kind of interpretation of what this means. But I just literally have no idea. I have literally no clue at all. So rough, I guess. But it takes a whole bunch of tries. Aragi gets her out. Thank God. Ononoki is really creepy at times, isn't she? Why was she sitting in there? I don't know. I don't know. Where did she get her whole yay thing, huh? are we gonna are we gonna see when she learns that? And Kaganui is indeed here. Kaganui hasn't been around for a while, right? We've seen Ononoki in all of these arcs. She's always been separated from Kaganui for so long. It's interesting that right when we need her, Kaganui actually is here, right? Very interesting. It makes you wonder, of course. I mean, here's the thing. Anything relating to Guy and Izuko always makes me feel like how much of it is calculated, how much of it is on purpose for it to go this way, right? Like, is Kaganui here because Guy Nezuko knew that Aragi would want to look for Kaganui? So Guy Nezuko was like, "Hey, Kaganui, go be there." Like probably, right? Like I mean, she Guy Nezuko literally sent him the text telling him where to go. So like, I guess, right? We're just in Guy Nezuko's clutches as always, which is just she just feels like a puppet master. She feels so controlling in a way, right? But what's interesting about that too is you have to wonder from Guy Nezuko's perspective, is she really in control? Or does she just know what's going on? Does she just know, right? Or is she yeah. I don't know. I don't know. You're the guest that dropped by. So we go to the cram school, which is interesting. The tree. The tree. The tree is in some way representative of Aragi himself, right? Um, so it's interesting that when we're talking about the subject of this arc being Araragi and like the change within him, right? Him fundamentally changing so much that he now views himself as a vampire, even separated just from the change that others have done to him. It's like this recognition that he himself has fundamentally changed. Us being at the tree is interesting. What's interesting about it is the tree hasn't changed. The tree is still just the tree, right? Araragi is the tree. And the tree's still standing. The tree's still here, right? I guess in a way that just makes me think about how Aragi himself, the whole issue he's having is this inability, I suppose, to accept and come to terms with the change that has happened to him, right? Um, Obviously that's like a wrong way to think about it, right? I don't agree with his line of thinking about that. And I guess the tree itself being still here unchanged, just like always, despite all the stuff that's happened around it, the Crane School burning down, right? This connection to Hanakawa trying to burn it, right? It's still there, right? Um, it's still unchanged, just like Araragi. He's still the tree. He's still there. Saying unchanged is wrong. I just mean fundamentally, he's still Araragi. The tree's still the tree, right? Um, yeah. You know what I just thought about, which I am shocked I didn't think about before. If Araragi is the tree in some sense, it makes so much sense that it is this part of Hanakawa, the tiger, that burns down the school, that the tree is like part of, right? That damages the tree so much, you imagine, through the burning of that, right? The same way that Hanakawa herself is like the start of everything for Aragi. She is the thing that in a way lit the tree on fire and started his entire thing, like in Kizu, right? That started his journey of change in the first place is Hanakawa. So it makes sense that Hanakawa, the tiger, burns the Cram School and in part the tree, right? I think that makes sense. And the tree is still standing, nonetheless. Of course. Makes sense to me. Hmm. His toenail is healed. So it's very interesting what we do with this whole healing thing, right? They show us that Aragi's healing is now she breaks his fingers, right? And she tells him that he has to think about healing his fingers in order for them to be healed, right? Very different than how his powers worked normally with like Shinobu vampire stuff, right? Because I guess what's interesting is that it shows how now, in order for him to heal, he has to think he's going to be healed. It has to come from like within himself, because that's where like this vampire power is coming from, right? And with Shinobu, I guess it was like he viewed the power as like an external thing being granted to him by another person, right? So the healing would happen either way, you know. Like when he's fighting with like dramaturgy, right? And Kizu. And dramaturgy cut his arm off, punched his arm off, right? Um, and he was like so shocked when his arm was like growing back, you know, he like pulled it out, right? He didn't have to know he was going to heal or think that he was going to heal because it was coming from an external force. But now that it's coming from within, that's how he has to think about it, you know? It's interesting. It's very interesting. Ononoki analyzes the taste of his foot. I guess it's payback for what he did to Karen in the first episode, or what he allegedly maybe did to Karen. He's keeping it private, right? God, so Araragi, in order to heal his fingers, has to think about touching Hanakawa's boobs, as I suppose I should have predicted. I don't really know what to think about that. I don't really know. Maybe the fact that it comes down to Hanakawa, who is, I mean, as we were kind of just saying, is in some way the start of everything, the start of all of this fundamental change within him in a way. Maybe it makes sense that it's related to Hanakawa. I don't really know what more to say about it than that. Like, sure. Like, obviously, in a way, it's just kind of a stupid, surface level, dumb thing that Aragi would want to think about. That's kind of feels like it's like masking emotions the same way it feels like this kind of thing always is, you know. So like, sure, yeah, why not? Very nice, very cool, very cool. Hmm. So we call out Shinobu. She has to to show her authority over them, of course. Oh, let me read these text flashes. These aren't the only ones, right? I hope I didn't miss others. I don't think I did. It's going to take some effort. And just stick my arm into your shadow and pull her out like some eternal organ. Please don't do that, Kakanui. I'll grab on with enough feeling as if I was pulling all her blonde hair out. Jesus Christ. God, she really has a great face here, doesn't she? Where is it? It's, yeah, right there. Perfect. Beautiful. Very nice. Oh God, Shinobu really has to like put on a good act here, right? Especially in front of Ononoki. She can't be embarrassed, right? Not in front of our like rival, essentially. Very cute. Very nice. Very nice. It was a devoted act of self-sacrifice. Naturally, she's so cool. She's so awesome. God, and then they start building snowmen. Like the background just changes over and over again. You see what I mean? It's like it's so crazy compared to previous arcs. I feel like it's never been this significant that the visuals have been this crazy this often. You know, man. God, we say this really crazy like meta. I guess we have all the actors on stage, all the information gathered, and all the answers now. Too bad I can't pause you to challenge the viewers. Let's get on with the resolution arc now. Time to unravel the mystery. Very meta. Very nice. Very cool. Your body, as of right now, or rather currently and slowly, bit by bit, as it always has been, is becoming that of a vampire. That is the current state of it. Was it for nothing that I buffed up my experience over the past year? Right, so I'm trying to think if there's any angle of this whole vampirism thing that I haven't really talked about. Again, I think it's the negative aspect of it. The only reason it manifests itself as this negative thing is because it's the unfair way that Aragi views it in the first place, relating to like his whole thing about rules, right? Which I think is just an important aspect to make sure is like squared in my mind, I guess, because it's like it feels like fundamentally it's like weird for the show to present these things that are in a way positive change within Araragi as something that has negative consequences, right? But it's because of the way Araragi himself views it, right? That's the important part. That's the important part. So I guess what are we gonna do? Like Araragi can't just be a vampire, right? He can't just be a vampire who can't be in the sun ever again, you know? That's not gonna work. And I guess I don't think that this arc is gonna fix everything for him because I feel like fundamentally this is like Aragi's this is like the big thing for him, right? Is if Aragi is able to clear this hurdle, if he's able to like literally rewrite the rules that he thinks are like this fundamental objective thing in order to account for the change that has been invoked within him over the course of the entire story. That just feels like the last thing that's like the big thing that he needs to overcome as like a character, right? Like I feel like that would be what would lead to him being like the way he was in Hana, right? Um, so I don't think we're gonna fix that in this arc. But I don't know how we would. I don't know how we would do that in 2 episodes, right? So what are we gonna do? Like, what are we gonna do? I actually have no idea, right? I don't know. The other scary thing about it too is it's like I guess the thing is like the longer Aragi views himself like this too, like Ononoki said, it's a gradual process. The worse and worse it's gonna get, right? The more vampiric he's going to become, you know, the longer he views it like this, and the longer he thinks of his situation like this, you know, without changing his fundamental view of things. And I don't think we're solving that in this arc. So I don't know. I wonder. I wonder. In that case, what is it going to be about then? Like what's going to happen? I don't know because we can't resolve this conflict. There's no way we can resolve this conflict now, right? So what's going to happen? I don't know. I don't know. How's Ononoki going to be tied to any of it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. It's a weird arc. It's a weird arc. I mean, it's a really good. I'm really enjoying this arc. This is. I love the Araragi arc so much. This feels like we're back. Like this is a classic Araragi arc. You know what I mean? Like this is a. It feels like even the other arcs where Araragi has been the narrator for a while have been so they've been so like shared between like other characters too. You know what I mean? Like there's been so much about other characters. We haven't had just a purely Araragi focused arc. It feels like almost since Nisei. You know, kind of like Nekomonogatari Kuro as well in a way, right? But that was kind of a flashback. That wasn't like progress for Araragi really. You know. Um, so yeah, I'm so down for this. I'm so excited to see where we go. So yeah, I don't really think there's anything else in this that we didn't talk about. I guess we talk about Oshino and him not being able to calculate Aragi's actions. To me it's kind of this thing between like Oshino and Aragi where it was always so clear that Oshino was like the wise mentor type character, you know, and how it felt like Oshino understood Aragi a lot, right? More than Aragi could understand himself, essentially. Like at least his problem with all of this, you know. So it just makes you think about where is Oshino and how much of his disappearance is in some way in service of his understanding of Araragi. You know what I mean? Like how was the point of Oshino having been around in the town that whole time for Araragi essentially? Like maybe, right? I don't know. I don't know. It just makes you think about Oshino and his relationship with Araragi and like what that means for both of them in a way, you know. I don't know. It is interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we talked about all of this, right? Leaning towards the soul of a vampire. Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. I think that is it. Lyrics at the ending are very good. They feel so meaningful. Like literally every single line in here feels so meaningful and so related to like the things that we're talking about here, like change and like the reality of change, like being able to accept it, right? Like there's all this regret about like not being able to return things to the way they were before, I suppose, right? Which was kind of like the end of this episode in a sense too, right? It's just like Aragi wanting to do that almost, right? It's like this regret over, or this realization of the change that has become, that has happened within him, and the knowledge that, yeah, you can't go back, to those old days. Hmm. Yeah, I guess that's it. Border Claris. That's the name of this. Good to know. Good to know. A good song. A very good song. I really like the ending and the opening. Anyway, I guess that is it. So please, if you enjoy my videos, do subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think about the claw machine, and I will see you in the next one.